This morning, 5 of the state's ostensibly most powerful men gathered around a table to publicly discuss the obstacles that are standing in the way of reaching a budget deal. The idea was to try to reach some kind of consensus, but instead the meeting served to illustrate why no agreement has yet been reached. These men just don't seem to get along.
But the point is, unless you have an open conference committee process, nothing is going to happen.
Senator, stay on point here.
I am staying on point. Conference committees.
You
feel that you have a fiscal plan that we can go to joint conference?
You don't have a fiscal plan. You never passed the budget.
You
never
that
passed
you have
the
a fiscal plan in place?
You never put anything out, Senator.
Don't
call anything a charade.
Could each of you tell me why you couldn't put the budget on the floor and vote on it right now? And we'll be out of here today. You won't even have to have any conference committees.
We want conference committees, though.
Oh, Scotty, beam me up.
Joining me now to discuss the still stalled budget talks and the nominating conventions that are right around the corner and could be affected by this are our insiders. They are veterans of New York's political scene who join us each week to offer their perspective on the stories playing out at the Capitol. Bob Bellafiore is a former press secretary to former Governor George Pataki. He is now a senior partner at Eric Moore & Associates. And Bruce Jory is a former senior advisor to 2 former governors. He is now with Corning Place Consulting, and he's an adjunct professor of political science at UAlbany. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me, as always. It's good to have you here. That was fun, huh?
Well, listen, all you need to do to understand what these public leaders meetings are about is to look at the way the tables are set up. Right? Nobody has a real meeting where the tables are open facing an audience. Right? If you want to have a real meeting, if you want to really discuss something, the parties face each other.
Like this.
Right, but here they're facing the cameras. Well, we're facing the cameras too, but that's because we're on TV. But these whole things are staged for the press and for the public, to the 3 members of the public who are paying attention. I know everybody for years railed against 3 men in a room or 5 men in a room and budgets negotiated in secret, but they were negotiated. There were deals cut. There were things that actually happened. This kind of supposed open process is theatrical, and that's about it.
Agree?
Agree. And these meetings could be productive if they explain what's going on, if there are productive meetings behind the scenes that are actually accomplishing agreements. One has the sense that there are no such behind-the-scenes meetings accomplishing anything, and hence all that we see today is kind of sniping, posturing, and trying to get their message across. But if you look at it, not one of them is really getting through with a positive message. To the public, it looks like a kaleidoscope of inaction and inactivity.
But does it not serve at least to illuminate for the public, for the 3 members of the public, of whom I was one, for the record? Okay, you just didn't watch it, but I get it. It's okay. You have a day job. This is my day job. But does it not serve to illuminate for people what's going on? I mean, clearly what came out in that clip is that these guys are not getting along. And if they're not talking behind the scenes, if they can't hold it together in front of the scenes, they certainly can't hold it together behind the scenes.
Not only are they not getting along, they're not even really communicating with each other. They're talking past each other. So in that sense, was it reflective of what's going on behind the scenes? Yes. But to the public, I think the public is ready to render a very harsh judgment on what they're not accomplishing.
So in that case, actually, they did themselves no favors, because if, in fact, you were watching this, you would say, oh, this is why there's no budget, because these guys just are talking past each other, and clearly they can't even speak the same language. But you guys actually started this. You told me before the show that it was the Pataki administration that we have to blame for these public leaders meetings.
Well, actually, you don't have to blame the Pataki administration for this. Because I don't think anybody wants to take responsibility for what
not even the people across the room.
Not even the joke writers or the message guys in either 2 houses. No, this was in 1995, and the Speaker of the Assembly and the Senate Democratic Minority Leader came down to the governor's office to try to make fun of the fact that he wasn't in town. Betsy McCoy, then the lieutenant governor, snuck up behind them and said, you don't like the way the budget's being negotiated, let's have a public leaders meeting tonight. And everybody's eyebrows went up and said, wow, I guess we have a game on. And we had a public leaders meeting that night, the first one in early March or February of 1995, which, at that point they happened sporadically, but all the deals still got cut behind closed doors. And that's really the way it ought to be. I mean, you want to have the press instantaneously call an end to these things, is if they sat there at a public leaders meeting and did what budget negotiations do. Crack open the aid to localities bill and say, let's discuss line 6. And then line 7, and discuss the budget in great detail.
But that's what they're supposed to be doing at conference committees, which is exactly what Dean Skelos is arguing. So, in fact, you're bolstering the argument made by the Republicans, which is, let's have conference committees. Let's get to conference committees and actually do the sausage-making of budget.
Well, except that that's not what happens at conference committees. What happens at conference committees is each side presents their proposal. They don't really do like a markup you have in Washington, which is what Bob described. But Skelos makes a point. On the other hand, the Speaker is right. Skelos and the Senate Republicans have still not put forward their version of a resolution or a full plan. So the fact is they're all right and they're all wrong. But to the public who's seen their parks padlocked, particularly in upstate New York, right, they're just saying a pox on all your houses. I think they're playing with fire. This is an electorate that is ready to unleash the furies of anti-incumbency, and this kind of games playing and theatrical posturing is just telling the public, lay it on us.
Well, the governor actually said as much, did he not? He said during this, actually, you guys are going to have to make the hard choices, and I know that you're concerned about making the hard choices because you're all worried about getting reelected. Do what's right instead of doing what's expedient. That he said that. Now, of course, for him, it's easy for him to say he's not running for anything.
Right.
At the end of this also, he said he might hold them here for the conventions. Is that going to scare them into anything?
No, I don't think so. They'll find a workaround. A lot of these folks will want to go to the conventions, but they don't really have to be there. Their positions are not up for nomination. It's just being part of the political, the political confab. But they could go to the conventions and do nothing, or they could stay here and do nothing. Either way, they're doing nothing.
And I would contrast this with Governor Patterson's first budget when he first came in the wake of the Spitzer scandal, leading to the former governor's resignation. The governor was holding a whole host, a series of leaders' meetings that were productive, in addition to the public leaders' meetings, and that's totally broken down. So he may make some debating points, but he is not proven able to bring the parties together, which is essentially what you're looking for a governor to do at this point, regardless of party. It's an institutional role.
If we could talk substance for 12 seconds. The Governor Patterson...
Have at it, Bob.
Just don't accuse me of wonka.
Okay.
In that first budget, the governor pulled everyone together, and the budget was a disaster. It's what's led to the problem that we have now. So I'm not so sure that...
Well, he said also that it wasn't his budget, right? He inherited it from the Spitzer administration, of which he was only a bit player.
Well, then he can't take credit for getting a budget done on time if it was a disaster that somebody else had put together.
Well, what's worse, a disastrous budget or a budget that's 6 weeks and counting that's late?
Disastrous budget. I think the legislatures and the governors throughout the last several decades, their record of late budgets, they will always say that it's better to have a good one than a late one.
Well,
I'm actually surprised that the governor's people have not tried to get them together, help them by resubmitting, and then reserving their ability to use their veto pen to veto the budget back into balance to get it done, rather than playing hardball at the front end, which is functionally what you guys did in 1998, I believe it was, when you vetoed the budget and they could not override
They went to court over that. Wasn't that what Pataki v. Silver was all about?
No, that was they may have, but the governor ultimately, the executive ultimately won those lawsuits.
Yeah, didn't you fight over it in court? Wasn't that what that was about?
That was over whether you could change policy by making the language of the budget instead of just doing appropriations. It was something else.